I ended up, I think, with like 400 moments or something by the time I joined.
Jeez.
Never sold one, so like I just got them all in there.
Yeah, and now you
And
can't
I
sell them.
and now
So
I can't, right? Yeah, completely illiquid, like
yeah.
the exact opposite of liquid. But I also bought when I joined, or like right before I joined, I was able to buy a champion moment,
Oh hell
not
yeah.
knowing what they were gonna do with it. But I was like, all right, cool. I'm like in the champion club, even though I'm
Yeah.
you know
I
can't
I
collect.
I will say I think that's one of the coolest things that UFC Strike has done. I think with other like Top Shot and All Day, there's been a little difficulty about like, separating the tiers, like legendary truly being like its own distinct thing. And I feel like UFC Strike has absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Champions Club, where it's like, look, like if you own a legendary moment or a champion moment, you immediately get access to this club. This is something that you can't, if you have a whole set of rares, you don't get access to it. This is the only way to get through that gate. And I think that is so cool. I think it's one of the coolest things that a Dapper like product has done, or just any product in the space where they've done like, no, here's like a gated event where look, you can go multiple times too. It's attached to a massive company, and if you have a champion moment, you're probably a massive UFC fan anyway. So can you tell me a little bit about how that like came about and how you guys were able to pull that off? Because right out the that's something I would have expected 3 years from now, not
Yeah,
first year.
yeah, it was exciting. And so like I know I jumped right into it, but yeah, I joined like 3 months, 4 months ago maybe now. And this is a good segue because actually like right when I joined, discussions were happening about Champion Club.
Hmm.
And so like just the week prior I had bought Stipe Miocic's champion moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's pretty surreal. I'm like I flew out to Vancouver, the Dapper offices. We're sitting there with the GM of Strike, our partnerships, our product teams, and we're just like talking about Champion Club. I'm like, wow, this is something I would have really liked as a collector, but to your point, not expecting it so soon.
Yeah.
Um, but really, like this was something that by the time I had joined Strike, which was again 3 or 4 months ago, they already had like a pretty good understanding of what they wanted it to be. And I think you hit it on the head that it was meant to be very like well defined.
Okay.
And I think like this space, there's a lot of ambiguity. And one of the things we needed to make happen was make sure that we didn't have just like rarities for the sake of rarities, but that or we also didn't want to like create something that was like just like a badge. We
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to create something that had like tangible benefits for our core user who's going to be that diehard UFC fan. Maybe a Cyril Gahn fan. You collect his champion moment. Francis Ngannou fan, collect his champion moment. So that's really where it came from. It was like, what do they want? And it all quickly came together from there. And then worked on the numbers a little bit. Of course, like the Series 1 update, dropping champion moments from like the 10,000 mint down to 3,000. So
Mm-hmm.
we really just like are able to maintain, like to manage like, the amount of members that are in it so that we're able to like deliver against what we said we would.
Hmm.
It feels very controlled, and we wanted it to be controlled and something that, didn't get out of hand or like run off the rails because it
Yeah.
wasn't defined enough.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. It seems very like forward thinking that you guys were like, look, like these are the numbers we have. Like it seemed very planned out and detail oriented, which once again, like I said, that's something I would have expected years from now, not right out the gate. And I think it's really cool that the UFC seemed to be pretty on board with it, that you guys were able to work that out where they're like, yeah, like add this champions lounge to like within the arena at a UFC fight. So how is
Yeah.
it working with the UFC? Because I think the big difference is like if you have Top Shot, they have to work with individual teams, individual broadcasting, plus the NBA as a whole, while UFC is like kind of all under one umbrella. So how does that work? How like when you guys come up with something, how do you approach the UFC and what kind of like permissions and channels do you have to go through to really see if something has wings?
Yeah, great question. It's a very tight partnership, and I feel I'm very grateful. I am a UFC fan, so like I have always appreciated their product. I've always
Yeah.
appreciated, their fighters and all of that. They want to push the envelope, like, so they're actually very receptive, very open to new ideas. I would say that, like, I don't feel dissuaded or discouraged from sharing things. None of us do.
Hmm.
The process really goes down to, like, we work very hard on, like, refining things to a point that we believe is something that we would want to take a shot on. And we have, plenty of things that we, like, want to take shots on. And then when we feel good about those, like, it's in a place where we can deliver against them, that's when we would, like, typically go to UFC for more, like, approvals and everything. But we work very closely to make sure that they feel that we're representing their brand really well. We are very cognizant of the importance of representing their brand well.
Hmm.
So it's honestly been like a very seamless sort of relationship. We all kind of want the same exact thing, but also we're also both sides are very eager to get things done. Like, things can't happen fast enough. Is like, not from them,
Yeah.
but just in general, like UFC Strike, like where my mind's at right now is like, things kind of like, we're moving quickly, but like, we're pushing, and like, there's more that needs to be done, and like, UFC is very on board with us doing that. So we
That's
don't really
really
run
cool.
into bottlenecks. Like, of course, you have to, like, you can't get everything you ask for all at
Yeah.
once,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're very amendable. They're very, lovely to work with. Yeah, like, it's not even like work really. It's very partnership, like, very few issues.
Yeah, you guys are
Very
clear,
great.
like, you guys have the same vision instead of competing for, like, what you want this to, like, actually be and how it's gonna work in tangent with the UFC.
Exactly. And if they have feedback on things, like, we're totally open to it. And then there are instances where, like, we go back and forth on things and then arrive at the exact, sort of like mid ground. Like,
Hmm.
it's been a very fruitful relationship. And I think at least, like, a lot of our, like, core collectors have seen that sort of culminate in, like, what we're able to do, how we're able to move.
Yeah.
Like, launching Champion Club, I'm sure we'll get into other things, but like hype NFT, getting things out the door quickly is, like, critical, and it's nice to have a partner that is very aligned to that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool and so encouraging to hear. Because I mean, as a hardcore UFC Strike collector myself, like like I said, I've been blown away multiple times where I'm just like, wow, like this is like a really cool, innovative idea. Even like the meetups you guys are doing, and like you said, you're using the UFC brand, so they could be very, if they wanted to, they could be very, very, very careful with how you use it. And instead, they're like, look, we like it. It sounds like, and based on what I'm seeing too and what you're saying, it sounds like they're like, yeah, we trust you guys, and like, let's just make sure we keep the communication going, and like, we want to run with you as fast as you guys can go, because the UFC is growing as a sport at like such a rapid pace too.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. Definitely not a knock on, like, any of the other products, because NBA and NFL are just, like, different animals, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, and they're way bigger too. Like they've already had their
exactly.
growth, you know.
Like, every
There's
franchise is worth like $1 billion, $2 billion
exactly.
in the NFL, and it's like UFC's worth, like, I don't know what it is these days, but it feels like it's still, like, on a pretty aggressive growth trajectory, and, like, has a global appeal that, like, I
Yeah.
rarely see for sports, at least in America.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think
so
the fact that their scheduling can be like very flexible, like even with the NFL, how they're trying to do like games in London, it's like they're like, oh, but it still has to be on Sunday. Like we're trying to figure all this stuff out. The UFC is like, yeah, we're gonna go and do a fight in Paris. We're gonna go do a fight in like London. Like we
yep,
can just go and do this because it's a little easier to set up, and like as long as the fighters are there, like it they're not they didn't have a fight the week before that they have to worry about. They're coming, they've been preparing for this fight for months, so they're fine.
exactly, and they're excited to be there versus,
Yeah.
like, having to be there, like
Ex
you said. And that's another, like, thing where it's a testament to the UFC that they also do cool, so that we're then like, wait a minute, you guys are doing something for you have a London event, like, okay, how do we lean into that more? And so it becomes this, like, symbiotic relationship where, like, we feed off each other in a positive, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 sort of way.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun to be like,
That's cool.
surprisingly fun.